Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today I have a guest for you. Her name is Rachel Garrett. She's from AkashicAngels.com. She is a registered nurse, so she's an RN, but she's also a holistic healer, and she runs the podcast Akashic Angels. And I was on it a little while ago. I don't think the episode's going to be up until like December or so because other people are more organized than I am. But I really liked Rachel's vibe and really wanted her to introduce her to my audience as well. Before I get started, I've been told to put all the housekeeping at the top of the podcast instead of at the end because then people will hear it. If you are looking for me, you can find me at therisingmoon.com, or you can book me for a tarot card reading, a life coaching session, and if appropriate, a celestial and angelic magic lesson as well. So you can book me for those there. I have a YouTube channel called Cronecast at The Rising Moon. That is where the video version of all of these interviews is posted, by the way. And then you can always find me here at Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. My guest is Rachel Garrett. She's from AkashicAngels.com, and she's going to give you her other socials or any other ways to contact her after we get talking. Hey, Rachel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really honored to be on your podcast and on your show, so thank you.
I really enjoyed speaking with you on yours, and I thought that you would probably have a lot of interesting things to share. So one of the things I want to talk to you about first is your podcast. What led you to doing this? Because you bring healers and other people from the esoteric community onto your own podcast.
So thank you. That's a good question. So I probably started my podcast a little over a year and a half ago. It's under the umbrella of Spiritual Spotlight series, but I have a lot of different kind of shows that I do on it. So what led me originally was I have a Facebook group, and I used to just interview people that were in my group, and I called them Fan Fridays. But I really enjoyed the conversations of, we'll talk about your ascension, talk about what led you to doing, like, with you, you're a divine conduit with Archangel Gabriel. Like, that's fascinating. Like, I want to learn more. And for me, I don't believe in gatekeeping. I think that we should be able to provide a vast array of healers, modalities, and different ways to connect with others. And I'm grateful that I've been able to connect with so many people across the world and to learn so much about different modalities. So for me, I wanted to pull back the veil. I wanted to introduce more people to spiritual modalities, holistic healing. Like you said, I am a registered nurse. Maybe get away from big pharma and maybe get away from, Western medicine. Not that I believe in it, but some aspects I don't. And just to kind of keep it real, like to be authentic and keep it real. And honestly, I'm in awe of everyone I interview. Like they're fascinating people. And I don't know if I would have the ability to connect with, someone like yourself had I not do this podcast. You know what I mean?
I do, because in doing this, you meet people that you might not otherwise cross paths, but they have
Yeah.
an important piece for your own journey. And when you talk a little bit about gatekeeping, what I'm always telling people is approach everything with respect. And if something isn't for you, we do not need a biped to gatekeep anything in the spiritual community. It will not work for you. You will feel blocked from it. You won't get the return on it. But
Yeah.
please remember, we have had different incarnations. And just because the earthly body that you're in this time does not have, because a closed practice is when you're born into a practice, but
Mm.
you may have had incarnations in which you were involved in the practice. And if something isn't for you, you will get the return that tells you that. Approach everything with respect, and you really can't go wrong. And that a cafeteria style approach to cobbling together your own practice, your own healing modalities, your own path, for we all have our own unique and individual soul path, is the best thing to bring you the best answers.
Yeah.
Because there is no universal truth in this particular form. There is a truth, but it's beyond our comprehension in this form. And so many people take different paths towards it. And those are they are valid answers. It's just they're not the only answers. And
So
that's
true.
trying to get people to understand. So what, like, this is just a little bit, by the way, whenever I have a guest on, like, I don't give them prep questions because I like to have an organic conversation. And so this is a question I'd like to ask you. What have you learned from your podcast that has expanded your own practice?
Oh, I love that question. I want to say, what have I've learned honestly about different modalities that I may otherwise not be familiar with. Like I'm an energy healer. I work with crystals. I'm certified in a lot of stuff. My toolbox is I have shiny thing syndrome. But it's honestly, I feel like I've been introduced to a different way of thinking. I've been introduced to maybe a different way of being more compassionate. Like how you just said, you may have not been born into this, but you may have had an incarnation in a previous life of doing that kind of experience. And that to me is like, yeah, thank you. Like it resonates. And I get these like aha moments where I haven't heard this term before, or I haven't read this book before, or I haven't heard about this modality before. And I'm always someone who's reading. I always want to learn. I always want to expand my mind. And I'm just so grateful to have the ability to, like, I meet with somebody like yourself and I'm like, oh, let me jump down this. I've never heard of this. Let me jump down. Let me read more about it. Let me learn more about it. And then for me, I feel like it's just another layer of kind of like my own awakening, my own expansion, and my own healing abilities.
That's the one that just is such a valuable thing in opening yourself up into the ways that other people do things. And you may not ever like switch lanes entirely,
Yeah.
but it can make an adjustment in what you're doing that can make all the difference for your clients and for yourself. And you said you started out with your Facebook group and
Yeah.
interviewing people within that.
Mhm.
Um, what is your Facebook group doing?
So my Facebook group right now, so I mean, this is a shift, like probably because of my podcast. It was called the Badass Life, Find Your Badass Life Purpose, and now it's the I'm like, what is it? The Road to Spiritual Awakening.
Mhm.
And really, it's all about people, no matter where you're at in the spiritual journey. Maybe you just want to learn something. Maybe you just want to engage with community. I'm grateful that I have a really active and engaged community of I feel like are my soulmate community. And I love the people that are within the group. They're very interactive. They cheer each other on. I will say that because of maybe not so because of COVID, but maybe the area, like we've kind of lost a little bit of community and we've lost this connection to, hey, let me talk to you about witchcraft. Let me talk to you about this. And I think a lot of people feel judged and maybe even shamed for even having, how dare they have a question in their mind about something that's deemed inappropriate.
Mhm.
And I will say in my group, judgment free, ask any question you want to learn about anything, like I'll talk about anything, I'll teach about anything, or I'll find somebody who can teach it. If I don't know it, I'm not going to assume that I know it. I will find a mentor, somebody who's very skilled in it that can teach about it. And that's what I love about my group.
That is such a key point whenever you're dealing with any forms of magic or witchcraft is please don't do magic you don't understand, but remember
Yes.
it's a resource and a path to understanding. So it's not that you're prevented from, and now the reason that celestial and angelic magic isn't suited to everybody is it can't be used for baneful purposes and it's best used in a pure intent. So it's best used for removing dark entities and for healing. But I literally just did a prosperity spell that is basically a karmic blessing working, which is fun. I don't get to do a lot of those. It's like normally I'm, fighting off other people's demons for them and trying to put them in cages and get them away. And it's fun to be able to do something that's like, this is giddy, yay. But that is what you're talking about as well, is that we have a world right now that decides that our identity has to be on a piece of paper that we
Mm.
read off, that I am this, I am that, I vote this, I vote that, I believe this, I vote that, I go to this church, I don't go to this church. And you fit into this little, preformed box. In reality, we will have a better society that functions in a very cohesive manner if we allow other people to pursue their different paths as long as they aren't harming anybody. And to stop thinking that what is right for you is right for everybody, and also to stop handing your identity over to different power structures that don't have our best interests at heart. They simply want to retain power. And I'm very specifically talking about politics there, where
Mm.
please understand that we are are all heavily programmable. We really genuinely are. And it does mean that we can start programming ourselves for healing and for advancement. And one of the things that you're talking about with having a spiritual community where judgment is not one of the things that happens is that in a spiritual awakening, there is something called the dark night of the soul. Now, the spiritual awakening concept, at first, it's like, this is beautiful. I feel it all with one. And like, it really is. It's almost like having a beautiful drug introduced into your system because you feel this like almost divine bliss. Now that will fade, like usually fairly quickly. And then you are left with your shadow work, with achieving your ego death, and what is called the dark night of the soul, which often manifests as depression. What Rachel does in her group is one of the best ways to combat the dark night of the soul because it gives you a sense of community, because the dark night of the soul will pass more quickly if you are able to understand that sometimes we are isolated to be able to look at ourselves, to be able to heal our things. But that doesn't mean that you are meant to live the life of complete solitude, that you can still have people who are walking parallel journeys with you, and checking in with them can bring light into a darker situation. Since the pandemic, there has been an uptick in depression and anxiety, social isolation, and other mood-related difficulties because people were isolated without any warning, and it completely disrupted the flow of their lives and made them question so many things. One of the things that the internet gave us was the idea of a social community. So now, Rachel, as far as I know, you do not practice any forms of magic, do you?
I will say I do.
Like, enlighten me. Cool.
Well, I will say that I'm fortunate. I'm not going to say that I am a practitioner. I will say that I am somebody who's learning, and I am somebody who is definitely, I'm going to my mentors. So I do have a show that I do within the Spiritual Spotlight series. I do with two witches. And they talk a lot about magic and witchcraft, and so they've introduced me to books and literature and things like, I didn't know what a servitor is. Not that I'm doing that right now, but like concepts and terms that really are interesting to me. I feel like with magic, especially, it's something that you shouldn't just lightly toy around with. I think you really need to have the skills and the education to do it, or find somebody who can do a spell for you, which I have done. If I need somebody to get away from my energy, I'm like, I need some help. But yeah, I've delved a little bit in it, but I'm definitely not a skilled person by any means, but very interested in it.
You point out something that I want to like really underline heavily with bold, which is that like you don't do a lot of it, but you're learning about it. And that when there's something that you need help with, you're likely to hire somebody.
Yes.
And I want you to hear something, guys, because all over YouTube, there are people who demonstrate spells, but they do it in kind of this a la carte manner. And you need to understand that when you're doing some form of magic, the very opposite energy or the intensified energy that you're calling towards you comes as well. If you do not know what you're doing, you can lose control of it. It can have unintended consequences in your life. All magic has a cost to it. And that is, there's a rebalancing of energy within your life. In order to do any discipline or practice in a way that will give you the best results, which means the results that you want, whatever they may be, you be trying to achieve, is going to be best done in a framework of knowledge. Yes. Just like you wouldn't want somebody to watch a YouTube video to reconstruct your knee, you would want them to have a full medical background. When you're trying to essentially manipulate the energy of your life and the life of potentially others into a different shape and form, remember, there can be blowback in other areas, and do the research. And if you are not comfortable in what I'm specifically thinking of banishings, because I have so many people who are like, yeah, no, I do stuff with demons. It's like, that is a very particular thing that you need to talk to.
You don't do that.
I do it, but it's what I'm.
You're skilled. You have the education in the background.
It's also like, it's my purpose. It's part of my purpose, and you will know. And by the way, it excludes me from other forms of magic, and I'm very, very aware of that. That's the whole, you have to work with the best intent. So that is the wisest thing that you can possibly do. Would you mind telling me, if you have them on hand, the titles of a couple of the episodes that involve your friends who are teaching you about magic?
Yes. Let's see here. I have 2 episodes about glamour magic. I have one about I think it's called Tick. It was about TikTok, but they call it Tick Watch because they feel that there's a lot of witches on TikTok that are not the best and highest good and maybe lead people astray. Any episode with Jake Paul or Michelle Margiata is based upon witches. I just posted an episode today about archetypes.
Okay.
And we talked about using, tarot. We did another one about deities too. We've done a lot of interesting episodes, and I do not chime in a lot. I'm being very transparent. I'm a sponge, and I really enjoy listening to them because they have spent years, just like you have. They're experienced in their craft and in their practice. So, and I look to them as mentors for me for something that I want to learn.
And I'm going to urge everybody to please check those out because there are, I'm not going to say limitations, there's a structure around the type of magic that I do that I am very unlikely to discuss some of the things that people really have an interest in. And it's not about judging doing that type of
Mm,
magic. I'm precluded from it so that I can take care of things like demons and dark
right.
entities and attachments. And it's something that I willingly undertook. And I did used to do different forms of magic, but in order to be able to do the type of magic that I really feel is my particular calling and why I have a gift, I had to move aside from that.
Mhm.
And what Rachel is talking about are people who are knowledgeable in the types of magic that I am precluded from doing because of the type of path that I chose as a divine conduit or was chosen for me before I ever got here. It's a little bit of both.
It is both.
It's hard to explain to people. It's like, oh, no, it's a soul contract I made before I ever hit the face of this earth. But I still had the option of choosing my own path when I was here. And that's what
Mhm.
people need to understand about life's purpose and your path is that you will always have free will.
Yeah.
The idea that everything is predestined, the opportunities that are predestined for you will come to you, but you will always have the right to say yes or no on things. And choosing in service of your highest good is always the best thing that you can do for both for your power, because you will be more
Mhm.
powerful when you're choosing in service of your highest good. But your highest good, I tell people it's like coming to a university and people have different majors. That the people who are doing types of magic that I am precluded from doing,
Mhm.
it is not that it's a lesser form of magic. For all I know, I've had a bazillion lifetimes doing exactly that type.
Yeah.
So, because you have to understand something to be able to either break it or combat it. You need to understand a lot to do removal work, to do what's called deliverance work. You have to have a deeper understanding of what you're not reaching for to be able to basically filter it out,
Mhm.
sometimes to imprison it. But it's still important to have access to the knowledge that brings you more power. And particularly for women, we are and people who identify as a woman, because it's not related to whether or not you have a uterus. It's either you have feminine energy or you have masculine energy, and we
Mhm.
all contain both, but they're in different balances in different people. People who have more feminine energy are more likely to express their magical craft because they have the gift of creation within them, because a female body when it does have a uterus has the ability to create life, and that energy is also in the feminine divine, and it is one of the things that allows things to manifest and magic to be formed as well. And that does not mean that men are precluded from it.
Right.
It's just they have a tendency to do magic that is more about power and control. Whereas women are far more likely, or people identifying as women or who are guided by the feminine, are far more likely to be doing magic to improve the lives of their own family, of themselves, of the community around them. And
Mhm.
what you're talking about with the people that you're interviewing is having a better base knowledge of how all magic works. And once you're well educated in magic, you are free to then craft your own craft. Meaning that whole cafeteria idea in spiritualism also works in magic. It is what folk magic is based upon,
Mhm.
where it is an individual or eclectic practice. So I'm really going to urge people to check out Rachel's podcast, and particularly the episodes that she's done with people who are talking about magic, because I want people to
Yeah.
have access to their power, but to do so safely.
Definitely.
All right. So, Rachel, now we're going to start talking about what it is you do, because you're a registered nurse, which means that you have a medical understanding. And like you, I'm a fan of modern science. I believe in everything existing in the earth and the water and the air and the fire. The earthly energy is the practical energy, the 3D. We are very blessed to live in a time of, as a, for instance, antibiotics, antipsychotics, all of the things that we can, things that used to ruin a life, no longer ruin a life.
True.
Having said that, we have become overly reliant on pharmaceutical solutions to things, and behind that is greed. It is the pharmaceutical companies. So you are doing something that takes your medical knowledge and helps people apply it in a way, as if, for instance, blueberries are said to be very good for blood pressure and anxiety, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes.
Yes. In short, yes. Will you tell me a little bit about what you do for clients and what you believe, what your philosophy is, please?
Let's see here. That's a good question. So I am a registered nurse, like you said. I've been a registered nurse for over 18 years. And I do 100% believe you that I do feel like pharmaceuticals are driving medicine right now. And it's affecting, even I actually run a doctor's office, and it's affecting how even our doctors are practicing medicine.
Mm.
And it's actually very shameful. And for me, I recognize that I didn't think Western medicine is 100% the ticket for healing, because they don't really address the mind, body, and soul. Like you said, we've been incarnated for many lifetimes. We carry trauma, we carry baggage, we have limiting beliefs. There's so many facets as a soul and as a being that isn't looked at in medicine. So for me, I like mindfulness. My primary work is healing. So I am a master IET practitioner. So that's integrative energy therapy. And I work with the 9 healing angels. And what you do is you get the issues out of the tissues. You don't have to relive the trauma, because I think we have a tendency to kind of shame trauma and to, oh, well, you got to talk about it when you were 4 years old. Like, come on. So for me, I much rather, let's talk about what's going on, what's holding you back right now. What are your struggles? What's going on? Let's dive in deep, because I am a registered nurse. I am kind of, what's anxiety? What's depression? Maybe there is a mental health component that does need to be addressed by a therapist, maybe needs a medication. But like you said, maybe needs something different. Maybe needs some essential oils. Maybe needs some crystals. Maybe needs some energy healing.
Or maybe
Maybe
it's
needs,
both.
a reading from you.
Yeah.
It's like there's just so many different modalities that anyone can tap into that has a holistic flair, that isn't going to prescribe you a medication and isn't going to band-aid the issue. Because I do feel like medications have a tendency to band-aid, and it's like you're addressing, like, oh, my foot hurts. Well, let me give you some Lyrica for your pain, but maybe my foot hurts because I'm afraid of stepping forward in my path. And maybe that's a mindset or a belief that I really need to work on. Or maybe it's a past life contract that I need to resolve. Or like I can go down the rabbit hole forever. So primary work, energy healing. I work in the Akashic Records is my main. I love the Akashic Records. I channel in a lot of healing through the records, and I bring forward your master teachers and guides and really kind of open you up. And what I love about it the most is I'm for clarity. For, like you said, we all have a purpose. I love the analogy of a cafeteria. I love that. I'm like, yeah, I like that buffet. Like, I like to pick from this. I like to pick from that. And that's pretty much what I do for my clients. I do, one-on-one sessions. I have a healing membership group as well that I do 2 channeled healings a month on, that I love doing. I love healing, like healing. And I will say this, because I know I'm getting long-winded. I truly believe that healing can be lighthearted. I don't think everything has to be super serious and super intense and super dark. I mean, yes, I agree. You do have to address your shadow side. You do have to address your light side. You do have to kind of get to a balanced state. I think that's where we truly need to be. We need to be to a balanced state. but does it have to be where I need to pay $17,000 to go to a shaman to tell me this? No, I don't. Like we can all heal ourselves.
And
Powers within.
exactly. There's one thing I want to revisit very quickly, and then I have something to say about the
Okay.
relationship between trauma and anxiety and depression.
Sure.
But really quickly, because we throw these terms around and forget that there are always newbies wandering around
Yes.
who have no idea what we're talking about. What are the Akashic Records?
So the Akashic Records, in a very, very simple term, is your life book. It's your life book. It's anything, and it's regarded with your soul. So it's anytime your soul has incarnated, any lifetime, you can access within, they call it the Akashic Records. And you go into what's called the Akashic field, and really anyone can learn how to use their records. But I recommend finding a Akashic Record practitioner, just because like I've taken years of training with it. I'm done just going to open up the records and be like, let's go. So it's basically your life book. Anything that has been, anything that currently is, anything that will be is within the records. Now, you mentioned free will. So we could have a reading and I could say, oh, this is going to happen. But then you turn left. Things will change. It's not set in stone. There's a fixed in the Akashic Records, and there's kind of like a non-fixed essence of it.
Oh, and that's exactly what I do. I'm called a crossroads guides. When people come to that fork in the road, which way they're going to go,
Yeah.
that's the information that, like, for their highest good, I'll tell them what that
Perfect.
looks like for them. And that's my preferred use of tarot for basically inner work and for healing and expansion. I do predictive tarot, and like even the way I say it, it's like I do consider a lesser form of tarot, because if you heal everything, you can face everything and you can do everything that you came here to do. And then you don't care about what's going to happen, because you're like, bring it on. I can handle it. I'm interested in this life. I'm engaged in my own purpose.
So
And I'm not worried about when the things I want are going to happen, because I'm trying to get the most out of the experiences that I'm having in the here and the now. And it's just a slight difference between what basically energy healing or inner work tarot reading and predictive tarot are. And I do both. But as I said, I really find that it is a more potent and powerful tool to do the energetic healing, or the ones that look into your issues. Now, when you talked about the shame that surrounds trauma, absolutely. One of the mistakes that we make as a society is telling people that it's time to get over something.
Oh, goodness.
Oh God, it just drives me insane. If you have never felt safe in your entire life, from the moment that you were born, and I'm talking specifically about people who have complex post-traumatic stress disorder from long-term abuse, whether it was psychological, whether it was neglect, whether it was sexual, whether it was physical, which, like, all of that happened to me. If you never felt safe from the day you were born, you don't have the same foundation that other people do.
No.
And so going back and understanding what that trauma may have done to you will help you to understand how to work with who you are. And when you are working with who you are, you will resolve the resulting anxiety that comes from never having felt safe, and the resulting depression that comes from the sadness, the deep sadness that can come with essentially never having felt loved until you learn how to love yourself.
Yeah.
And the other thing that bodies do is that when we have not processed our emotional or our energetic trauma, it comes out in physical manifestations. There's a lot of autoimmune disorders among trauma survivors, as your body basically redirects that traumatic injury into other areas of your life. And so you can, even if not cure, you can lessen the impact of autoimmune disorders by doing some of the work that Rachel is talking about. And in the Akashic Records, one of the things that can help you understand is that, because some people are like, yeah, no, I have anxiety and a great childhood. It's like, this time. This time you did. Maybe you had it this time, but it's an energy that you're carrying forward that you have yet to resolve.
Right.
So there's just so much worth in looking at those things. Now, specifically, I'm going to plumb your ability to heal here just a little bit. If somebody cannot afford a session from you, what can they do to try and improve their own energy, their own practices, to try and get the best results?
That's a really good question. I mean, I'm just thinking, there are definitely a lot of videos on YouTube. Like, you can go onto YouTube, you can go to your library. Like, if you're looking to, maybe, let's say, like, the body keeps the score. So one of the books that I'm immediately being drawn to is The Emotion Code. or the body code, where you really tap into emotional trauma that is stored into the cellular tissue. And maybe you're looking to let that go because you're feeling a lot of anxiety. Go check out that book and then implement the practices within it, or find a community where you can maybe barter for services. That's what I've done, like, hey, I'm really interested in getting this. I'll do a session for you. Maybe you can do a session for me. And maybe it's not a skilled practitioner, which is fine, but maybe there's something else you can do. I think there's so many different healers and so many people who are willing to give free education, because I think by educating yourself is where you become empowered, and that's where you can learn to heal yourself. You don't necessarily have to spend I don't know why I'm stuck on $17,000, but you don't have to
It must
spend
have been
that.
a sum somebody paid, and you were like, "You paid what?" Oh my god!
And also find something that resonates with you. I do feel like there are people that may not have the best intentions and
Yeah.
may not have your best intentions in mind. So find somebody that you truly resonate with, find a book that you truly resonate with, and then maybe just try it out and see what happens. Their meditation is for free. You can meditate, you can journal, even doing something as simple as journaling. When I was 4 years old, this is what happened to me. Feel into that moment, and then truly allow yourself to grieve it. And then hopefully some of that emotion can dissipate and some of that energy will lift off of you. Yes, I 100% agree with you. Just get over it is not going to work.
No.
But you're going to have to be proactive and take some action in your healing process if it's something you truly want to release and truly want to heal from.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is likely if you're drawn to either of our podcasts, that you are interested in healing and you may also be a healer.
Yeah.
Healers are, and so are psychics, and so are empaths, and so are channelers. They're more sensitive than other people. So the whole idea of just get over it is like you're literally not constructed in the same way by virtue of what your life's purpose is meant to be when you come here.
Yeah.
It's part of the reason that comparing ourselves to others is like a no-win game. Like don't enter into that because you are different. You came here. You may have had a different experience. You may have a different actual physical response and emotional response system that wasn't just formed in trauma, but is part of your own soul's path. Do not let the judgment of others define you. Just try and find the information that will help you heal. And you touched upon one of the things that, like, people have a session with me afterwards. I'm very likely to send them a list of healing recordings to go through, and they are free and they're on YouTube. And I always ask people to, hey, stop, take a moment, watch a commercial, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, give something back. It not only is fair to the creator, but it creates the energetic space within you to receive that energy as well. Balance is everything in everything that we are doing. And it is part of the reason that as spiritual workers, we have to be very grounded. And so your approach to being in the very 3D modern medicine pharmaceutical world in a doctor's office actually does help keep you in a very grounded and rooted state. But here, if you only treat one aspect of a disorder or one aspect of an illness or one aspect of a person's turmoil or trauma or pain, again, it may alleviate it in the short term. The only thing that can alleviate things in the long term is a better understanding of self that then gives you a better understanding of others, that then gives you perspective and comfort within your own walk through life. You had such a healing vibe, by the way. Like like I said, you interviewed me, and I was just like, I really like her. I want her on the podcast because you have this very clean, healing energy. And one of the things that you talked about is also very important. Because we live in a time where people suffer from economic deprivation and rising costs are limiting their ability to go towards healing, please don't forget that if you enter into spiritual communities, there are bartering situations where if you do this, I'll do that. You can keep the scale balanced. You can keep the scale balanced, and so that no one is in a non-reciprocal relationship or in a relationship where they're just draining another person. there is good give and take in spiritual communities. Now, I am the world's most introverted person. I think almost anybody who interacts with me is like, you're like one step away from being a recluse, right? And it's like, yeah, it's more like a half a step half the time, but yeah. And it depends on what you best function with, because there are people that I do actually like kind of connect with very easily. It's just that in whole, I genuinely have a tendency to hang back unless I'm in a community of like-minded people. And that's what you're talking about, are
Mhm.
people who are trying to learn and to grow. Rachel, have you written anything that people could find? Do you have anything available?
So I no.
I'm
um
neither. I do a bunch that's, spell work, and you can look at my Instagram, my Facebook page, and my community page on YouTube for what I have written, but I don't have anything amassed and here's my pamphlet, here's my book.
I will say that I do have some online courses that you can purchase. I also have I have a lot of, like, you. Go check out my YouTube. It's Rachel Garrett is my handle, and I have free videos. I have like I used to do another radio show called Akashic Angels. I have multiple series that I do one with my sister because she's an atheist and I'm a spiritual person, and it's funny that we're both in the same family.
Mhm.
I have the other show that I mentioned. It's called The Beauty of Grey, is the one with the two witches. I have another show, It's Me Not You, all under the Spiritual Spotlight series umbrella. That's with two psychic mediums. And then I have obviously the amazing interviews that I've done, Spiritual Spotlight series. But then I do my own videos of how to protect your energy. Don't compare yourself to others. How to not take things personally. How, like, there's tons and tons of free resources like you have on your channel. I have on my channel. I have with my Facebook group. Because I feel like sometimes writing something may get missed. So I do like the power of watching a video,
Mhm.
but then you can see me doing it. I'm somebody who, like, please show me, like Donna Eden, she's an energy medicine practitioner. I love her video about tracing the meridians and kind
Mhm.
of how to close up your energy field. Like, that's a free resource on YouTube. I will watch every now and again. I just YouTube's a gem.
YouTube is one of the best resources that has ever come along, and it's not just in the spiritual community.
For
Khan
anything.
University will teach you almost anything that you need to know. There is somebody who's teaching French, and they're doing an effing good job out there
Yeah.
on YouTube. Whatever you want to learn, there's somebody teaching it on YouTube, and really all you have to do is interact and return.
Yeah.
We have so many free resources available to us. It is actually one of the greatest gifts of the modern age, is the accessibility that YouTube gives to us to be able to interact. One of the things that you touched upon was that you like to be able to watch videos, and I really want to like address that, because again, the PTSD, CPTSD, anxiety disorder, depression
Mhm.
connection that so many people have when they're healers who have not healed yet, and so they don't know how to take care of themselves. You
Yeah.
may find that you're a visual learner, because actually, CPTSD survivors frequently have a form of attention deficit disorder that is not true ADHD. It's just that they have a very hard time dropping their guard. And when they can see somebody, they're far more likely to learn easily, because when they try and focus solely on the written word or something that is explained in the written word, there is a part of them that is like, no, no, this is not safe. I cannot concentrate. And so they find themselves reading the same sentences over and over and over
Yeah.
again, unable to comprehend what they mean or unable to retain them. So
Mhm.
please keep that in mind. It has nothing to do with intelligence. Some of the most intelligent people I've ever met are visual learners, but you may be a visual learner if you are a trauma survivor. And that is, again, why going towards these free resources on YouTube and going towards the resources that are provided for people, and everybody deserves to make a living. Please don't think
Yeah.
that I don't think, hey, if you really cared, you wouldn't charge at all. Everybody needs to eat and everybody needs to have a decent life. But what happens with generational trauma is frequently generational economic deprivation or generational poverty. And
Mhm.
so that is why I hit the please, what do we have that's free hammer so very much, because it is incredibly important to help people escape that cycle of poverty and of pain. And it doesn't mean that you'll necessarily be rich as Croesus or something, because not everybody needs to be. but it will at least alleviate the pain, the trauma, the energy that you've been carrying forward. And once somebody in a generational trauma or a generational curse cycle begins breaking it, it starts breaking it for everybody because
Yeah.
you're breaking that hold. If you want to think of it, it's almost like, you know, how Boy Scouts can tie these fisherman's knots, and it's like, how do you ever get out of that? I'd be permanently trapped. You're the person picking apart the knot. When you're doing that healing, you're breaking down the bonds of a generational curse or generational trauma. Now, are generational curses always caused by practitioners? Usually, yes, but it's more complicated than that, and we're not doing an episode about that, so I'll get to that in a different one. But usually, I like generational curses the best out of any form of darker magic because it involves healing, it involves awareness, it involves you doing the work, and then you're free. And it might take a little while, but then your whole life will be transformed and you will feel and see and be differently in a way that brings you more joy and more love and more connection within this world. All right. So, Rachel, is there anything you want the listeners to know about that you think is important or that you're doing going forward?
It's a good question. Let's see here.
And it's okay. Like I put like, please understand, my poor guests are like, where's it coming from next?
No, I love this.
I
love
got
this.
no questions here. God knows what she's going to ask.
I will say that upcoming for me is I'm going to be launching a low-cost membership group. It is Pathways to Peace. You can probably find that on Facebook. My Facebook name is Rachel Garrett. I think it's Rachel C. Garrett. YouTube. And I like what you said. There does need to be some form of an energy exchange. And that could just be liking and subscribing to our channel and leaving a comment. Like that helps us out, you know, for future maybe possible monetization if that's something that we're interested in. I like that idea of energy exchange because then it's a mutual, you know, hey, I like your videos. Hey, I like your vibe. You know, thank you. And I like that. And then what else is upcoming? I'm sure there's lots upcoming.
You must
just wait and see.
you genuinely, you've got to be far more organized than I am because like we talked, I think almost a month ago and you're like, this will be on December. I'm like, you are so much more organized than I am. Like I'm lucky if I'm like 5 or 6 weeks ahead of my own game these days.
I have multiple planners, guys, multiple planners. I have to be organized.
And it's a little bit unfair to ask somebody who has so many like pots on their stove that need stirring. It's like, what do you have coming up? You're like, well, no rest, but like other than that, let me think.
You know what? I actually am drawn to tell you this. So I recently just took a light language channeling class. So it was I think 6-week with Jamie Price, who has a book about light language. And so now she's taught us how to be able to channel, to sing it, to write it, to sign it. So for me, I'm feeling really called to kind of put out light language transmissions. So that will probably be on my YouTube channel where I will be doing some light language transmissions. So that is upcoming.
That makes perfect sense with like it makes perfect sense because like I said, when you interviewed me, I was like, you're basically the same thing I am. You're just under a different like table. You're under a different label. It's like you're taking a slightly different direction with it, but you are one of the healers. And so it does make sense to me that you're channeling light language. Please remember that there can be judgment from people who don't interact with these communities about how fantastical or strange or out there things are. And when it comes to being woo-woo, I'm basically woo because like I'm very practical, but there is a spiritual component to all of this. And what I really want people to understand is that if you end up healing and feeling better and having a better life, you will care so very little how other people judge what you are interested in or what you are doing or what you are reaching for to find that path towards healing, towards connection, and a feeling of resonant purpose within your life. And pretty much nothing will help you more in this world to feel better about this world than resonant purpose, where you feel like, listen, I can't do it all, but I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that I'm trying. And I know that all it takes is the butterfly's wings flapping. And maybe I'm that little butterfly and the ripples are felt all over the world. Either way, I know I'm doing my part and I don't feel helpless. I don't feel powerless and I don't feel hopeless when I know that I am doing what I can in this world to make it better in the way that I can. And that starts with making yourself better. And one of the people who can help you with that is Rachel Garrett from Akashic Angels. Check out her Facebook group, check out her YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rachel. It was lovely to speak with you. I look forward to that light code activation. I enjoy watching those. It is always amazing to watch people who tap into essentially an unearthly channel of spiritual healing at that high level and put it out there, because there's so much courage and so much authenticity and just this ability to completely disregard what others might say about them, which is really always our path to our best life, is
Yeah.
understanding that if you try to live your life in service of other people's expectations of you, you will not be happy, because you will not be your authentic self. People mock things sometimes, but it doesn't mean that they're anything other than worthy and authentic and valuable within your life. So find your answers and you'll solve your problems. And you'll say it, slay your dragons is the thing that I'm always saying. Solve your problems, slay your dragons. This was Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. I'm Alane. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session, or when appropriate, a magic lesson. And my YouTube channel is cronecast at the rising moon, where the video version of this interview will be up at the same time that the audio version is. Take care, be well, and live magically.